Welcome to the creative side of things,
where we empower and inspire business owners and entrepreneurs to tap into their inner creative.
From standing out in saturated markets
to debunking and challenging the status quo.
We'll learn firsthand from actual small business owners how they've applied creativity, imagination, and common sense to grow their businesses. I'm Javier, Chief Creator and Founder of High Ground Creative.
And I'm Megan, Founder and CEO of Cheek & Co. Clothing.
I'm Gen X and her dad.
I'm Gen Z and his favorite daughter.
Oh, that's debatable.
Well, it's not up for debate. Together we are creative thinkers,
design experts,
branding gurus,
imagination igniters,
and coffee addicts. Keep listening and we'll prove it to you.
Hey, you might learn something.
Imagine that.
Ready?
Let's get creative. Hello.
Hey, we're back.
Hi, Dad.
Welcome back, everybody.
Hello, Right Brainers. Welcome back. I'm your co-host, Megan, and to my right is my other co-host.
I am her father.
Who is also my dad.
Yes.
We also just happen to be related. So.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
Well, welcome back to the Creative Side of Things podcast, where we empower and inspire you to tap into your inner creative, because everyone's
creative, people. Please listen to me. Everybody's creative.
If you think you aren't, you just haven't figured out what that creative thing is yet, so we're here to help with that.
Absolutely.
And we do so by bringing in guests and having topics.
And we try to see what kind of things our guests did to solve problems, use creativity, imagination in their lives, in their spaces. Why are my glasses fogging up? There's a vibration going on in here.
Maybe no glasses for a few.
It's like, they're like fogging up. See that? That's crazy. Okay.
Like a sauna.
So let me recap. I know, right? Let me recap a little bit. If this is the first time you've seen or listened to this, our Acres of Diamonds, you'll see it in our branding for this season, season 2. I'll quickly summarize this again. We all want to conquer the world. We want to create impact. That's awesome. World do that. However,
world domination.
World impact, right? So I'm going to rule the world. Listen to me, peons. No.
Being influential
instead
of an
influencer, right? Exactly.
Yes, exactly.
However, many do that at the expense of seeing what's in their backyard.
They think
it's better.
Bigger is better, but if you can't thrive locally, you can't thrive nationally.
Right.
You can't.
Absolutely.
You can't dominate the world like that.
Exactly. It starts down. It starts here. So
we're here to highlight those.
We're going to do that. So we're highlighting people within our backyard in Delaware, which is the second smallest state after Rhode Island. But we have a lot of influential people that are creating impact in their space within our community. And so hence Acres of Diamonds, gems and diamonds. Not diamonds in the rough, but diamonds there. So today's guest is no different than that. It's we're going to really bring that in because these are folks that I know personally and care about professionally and personally, and they're a client of High Ground for several years. But what they're doing, it's also another testament of you don't always have to be in the forefront, in the light, to be making an impact. And these two individuals are somewhat there, but they're doing a lot of amazing things within their space. So. There you go. That's a pretty.
And to some aspect, everyone in Delaware knows of this.
Yes, correct.
So, even if you haven't gone in, you know it. So, I wanted to share a quote. We don't know who said it, but which is better than quoting the wrong person, which we've done before. Which you've done. But I really like this because with creativity and you have like a connection with people with creativity, and this kind of brings that out with our guest today. So it says, innovation in healthcare doesn't just come from a lab, it comes from understanding the needs of the human heart. And it's kind of metaphorical because at the end of the day, the patient is what matters.
So innovation in healthcare doesn't just come from a lab. It comes from understanding the needs of the human heart. And I've had many conversations with these individuals in what they're doing, that the focus is the person. The focus is their heart. That's what matters. Everything kind of stems from the inside. Very heart-driven individuals in their organization. So without further ado, I want to introduce Lauren Webb and Jeff Coldiron, who are basically, there's a lot of people in this organization. They're from Dedicated to Women ObGYN Associates in Delaware. But they're more than this, right? And these folks, these two individuals, there's a big team here but for all, they might, deny it, but they basically run the show. Or at least drive the ship and drive the direction and set the pace. And everybody kind of follows that. That's why we kind of wanted to bring them in there, because these two folks are work hand in hand very closely every day. And they're in the same office, and they love each other, I'm sure, but they also hate each other at the same time. And we want to pull all that information out, because we don't want to just know. We want to get to know what they do, and we're going to dive into that, but also get to know the person.
Which is a fun dynamic, because we've had to learn our differences and how we work together, and like my weaknesses are your strengths and vice versa, and how we kind of balance that. And that flows right into this as well in business, and how you work. You use creativity to kind of fix those obstacles and work with people.
Right. So by title, Lauren Webb is the Director of Operations over at Dedicated to Women. Jeff is the Executive Director. I know you don't care about titles, but you have to have a title. In charge of what's next. That's a good title. Mm-hmm. So without further ado, Lauren and Jeff.
Awesome, thank
you. Very good. Good to have you both.
Yeah, we're really excited to be here.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming in. And I didn't have to, bribe or anything, so appreciate it. I reached out to Lauren. Hey, do you think Jeff would be up for this? I think so. Let me talk to him.
Oh yeah, I just told like half the details, and then yesterday I'm like, and it's recorded and it's on video.
Oh, by the way, it's a podcast.
But I did say it wasn't live, so I didn't want to freak out Jeff and have him like walk out of the place.
I don't think I could even handle a live podcast.
Yeah, goodness.
Live is scary.
You can't.
I love recording and being able to re-record and tweak it a bit. So.
Yeah. But having said that, we don't.
No, I mean like Instagram stories, or right. I just re-record if I stutter. But on here, you guys just have to accept it if I stutter.
By the way, I am just giving up on the glasses.
No glasses
today. I am fogging up the glasses. I don't know why. So it's not warm in here, is it?
It might just be like
hot-headed. It's just me. I am. I do want to say this. I told Jeff this, but I didn't say that. After this afternoon, I'm going to go to a Survivor casting call.
I'm so excited.
And in about an hour from here.
It's cool how close that is.
It is.
Like,
I've applied for the show many times. It's people that know me closely know that I'm a huge coffee fan, but also huge Survivor fan. People put The Office or put Friends on whenever they want passive TV. I put Survivor on.
Yeah, we all have our thing.
So I just run it all the time, and I'm a big, I have my Survivor buffs and my shirts, and so I'm going to be the old guy. You know how they have to check every box in these reality shows?
You've hit the demographic.
I'm the old guy.
Yeah.
But actually, I'm a Puerto Rican guy. I'm an old Hispanic. I got two.
It could work out in your benefit.
I think so. Last season, just to let you know, a 50-year-old won Survivor. So there's precedent here. Yeah. You seem surprised. Awesome. So this is not about me. Let me turn it back to Lauren and Jeff. Thank you for being here. And I want to set a tone here, because there's people that are going to listen to this who know who you are, but there's a lot of people who don't. And I'm talking about you personally, but also what Dedicated to Women is all about. So when we ask questions, it's not like one and one. It's a conversation. Just jump in, work with each other.
Interrupt each other.
It's all right. We talk over each other's all the time.
Yeah.
Bella hates it, because Bella has to hit the button about who's talking or like what camera hits.
Because it's like broad and there's two of you. If you each could just kind of go over what you do and like what it is in your opinion, and then it might be we might get a different kind of.
So let's see. Let's get to know Lauren and Jeff. Like, first of all, your background.
The duo. Okay.
And then how you got here.
Okay. Yeah.
And then once we do that, both of you talk about Dedicated to Women, what you're about.
Got it.
And then we'll kind of go from there. Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay. So go.
So my name's Lauren Webb. I've been in Delaware my whole life, born and raised right here. It was really important to me to stay in Delaware, I think, too. My family's all here. Family's a big part of my life. My kids, first of all, my parents would never let me leave anyways, because my kids, once you have kids, you no longer, right? Like the grandkids totally win everything. But I have worked in healthcare for a really long time. Please do not mistake that with patient care. I do not think that I think if it takes a really special person to do patient care. I really enjoy healthcare though. I worked in healthcare IT for a long time. I did some software stuff for a long time, but always sort of behind the scenes supporting things and making, the wheels turn. And I met Jeff, 5 years or more, I guess now, because in my old position, I had helped with some stuff, and we kind of reconnected 3 years ago, and that's like what's brought me to where I am now. But outside of like work, I'm a mom. I have a 15-year-old and a 7-year-old, so we do a lot of different pieces of life all the time.
What are their names?
Riley and Stella.
Aww.
Yes.
Oh, Stella, I love that name.
Yes, and they're both very different. They're both, my youngest one's just getting involved in sports and stuff, so we live really busy, active lives outside of like the 9 to 5, I guess, as well. So.
Okay, very good, very good. So I was debating whether to have Jeff on because he is a Phillies fan, but we got over those differences, and my Nationals and his Phillies had something in common this year. We both watched the World Series from home. No, we like to. We have good banter with each other. It's so good. It's all respect. Good respect for Jeff, man. Yep. So tell us about you.
So kind of similar to Lauren, I was born and raised in Wilmington, Delaware, and been in Delaware my whole life. I love the area. I love the place. I have a big family. Everybody's from around Delaware, and for the most part, still here. I have a lot of cousins, and we're some of us are all over the place now, but, obviously similar to Lauren, family's the most important thing to me. I started in healthcare years ago, maybe about 2011. Started in healthcare. Prior to that, I'd done marketing in sports, and I had always wanted to do that, and kind of just made a switch and really enjoy healthcare. Came up in more the finance end of healthcare and that type of thing, and over time,
She's not for me.
I managed a medical billing company for a while after being in private practice, and the medical billing was all private practice, and then ended up getting married, and I was traveling to Newport, Delaware every day, and then found an open position over at Bay Health in the hospital. I went there. It lasted about a year. I had a good experience, but private practice was what I wanted to do. You have a lot more freedom. You have a lot more decision making. There's not a lot of levels of different red tape to get through that you get in the hospital. And through connections, I'd met Dr. Hartman and Dr. Scaccieri and some of the other docs in the area, and position open and dedicated. And I interviewed, I built the relationship, and I've been here ever since. And I absolutely love the job. I love the company. I love what I do for work and what I do for a living, and hope we can do it for a long time. I'm excited and of the fact that in a lot of ways we are bucking a trend of private practices not being private anymore and physician owned. I think at this point we may be the largest private practice in the state, definitely the largest and one of the only OBGYNs, but it has become a very difficult thing to remain private in healthcare, and I think we're doing that very, very well.
Yeah, that's an accomplishment itself.
No, for sure. So that's a good segue. So tell us about Dedicated to Women in depth. The name is Dedicated to Women OBGYN Associates, but it's more than that. So, what say you?
So we can kind of walk through a little bit. So we have grown for years, right? Dedicated to Women originally opened actually as OBGYN Associates, like back in the early 50s. So it's not a new practice. And I think that goes back to you saying, like, most people in Delaware are aware of the practice. Mm-hmm. We have like 3-4 generations worth of patients in the practice too, which is really interesting and cool when you think about how long we've been serving like the women of Delaware. We Dedicated to Women is growing though, right? Every single day. So we also do serve, we do have some male patients. We have general surgery inside of the practice now. We have several service lines. We have maternal fetal medicine. We have imaging. There's just so much more to Dedicated to Women than a lot of people want to think of it as the OB docs, the place that deliver the babies, which is what we do, deliver.
But tell us how many babies you deliver in Kent County, percentage-wise.
Kent County, well, in the state, we deliver 15% of all babies.
Okay.
That's been the last 3 years. So 1.5 out of every 10 babies in Delaware come from dedicated to women.
Okay. Wow. And then in our county, it's a lot more than that, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah. We deliver, I mean, at Kent General Hospital, which is the only hospital in the Dover area, obviously, we deliver 98% of
Holy
the
cow.
So cool.
Babies on that 5th floor.
Yeah.
You hear the little baby music all the time.
Yeah. But, I think too, like there's just so much more to OBGYN practices than OB, but that's definitely like what people think of first.
Yeah.
But GYN care is such an important part of a female's life. It is not always the most enjoyable, or it's very awkward for a lot of people. And so something both Jeff and I feel like is really important is sort of normalizing that conversation for people. This is what we do every single day. These things aren't unique. We hear these things, and really making our patients feel comfortable being able to come to us, because there's a lot of reasons they need their OBGYN provider for a long time.
And that's why we're so glad that you guys came on, because I think it's important for our female listeners to it's a normal conversation. There's nothing to be ashamed of.
There's probably not a question we haven't already had before or something we've seen. And I think a lot of the times these appointments are really private and almost embarrassing for some people. But from end to end, right, our compassion starts at the call center. So as soon as you're calling in for us, we're trying to make sure that like we're here to hear you. This is individualized care for you. So if you're listening out there, we do want you to just know that you can call in, be honest with us. That's the best way that we can sort of help serve you too.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah. And one thing that I know, because, we work together, my company with you guys, is how innovative. It might not be, groundbreaking where you put this together, but I've always been impressed at how you intertwine all the different lines of business. So it's a seamless, and this is a term that Lauren, frictionless experience, which I've used many times, which I love that term. I don't know, I've used it in different things. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
But I got to give you credit because that was yours. Tell us about that, how you can have them shift between one thing and another, and so that even though they might have somebody else, you're not trying to take them away from somewhere, but you provide opportunities for people to be able to be taken care of in all phases in the
world. So that's actually like a big part of our mission, is that we can care for women through all phases of their lives. But really it starts, right? We have young patients who come to us, before they're thinking of having a family or maybe different things like that. And our whole sort of mission is to be able to frictionlessly give you the care that you need as you change seasons of life. Okay. Because you're going to come to us first. There's a lot you have to learn in the beginning. There's lots of things we need to share, things that maybe you've never talked to anyone else about, and that's kind of where we start. But then maybe eventually, you do get pregnant, have babies, but then there's a postpartum period that comes after that, and that's a very critical piece of care that we need to give to someone. And it's a shorter window, right? It's only a few weeks worth of time that we're really giving that time and attention, but then we want to stay with you long term. Also, just inside of our practice, we try really hard to offer different service lines and things for patients. We have on-site mental health, which is super important. It's a hard.
That's huge.
Yes, yeah. It's hard to get access to that right now. So that was a huge project Jeff did. Actually, all the credit has to go there for that. But we needed those boots on the ground. We needed people that, especially when you talk about like a postpartum period or something, it's such a short window that you're trying to provide that care for. But we have the stats on like high risk is so crazy now too, that I think some of the docs, make mention 5 years ago, 10-15% were high risk, and now it's in the 90% of patients that are considered high risk. So
postpartum
during pregnancy.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Wow. So we brought in the maternal fetal medicine. Dr. Andrew Ward has been a fantastic addition to our physician group, and you're able to actually have that care one hallway over. So that can be a really scary time for a patient. Okay, now we've told you things are changing a little bit. Maybe there's some indications that are making you high risk. No longer do you have to leave dedicated to women and drive an hour to find care. We're able to do a warm handoff, walk you one hallway over.
Way less
all
scary.
of that stuff is totally integrated.
Yeah. Warm handoff, that's good.
Absolutely. And it just carries on from there. We do still have midwives in the practice. We have nurse practitioners, physician assistants. So because we find that patients have different, levels of comfort and different things that they're looking for. And sometimes patients just want the in and out and they want to do their annual appointment and get out of here. And so, we are able to keep our schedules in a place that we can offer something for everyone, which I think is a huge thing that we can do.
And I want to give you kudos because I use a term, because I've seen the heart of you guys and what your intent is. I see it as compassionate healthcare. And I hate to say this, but in many places it doesn't feel like, I'm not saying here, but in other places that it's not very compassionate.
Right.
It's very much so.
And I kind of wanted to jump into what Lauren was talking about. First of all, the mental health program was started by myself and our lead midwife at the time, Katie O'Brien. And she's also a lifelong Delawarean, a midwife. Her family is from the area as well. She's since transitioned to a wonderful company, Mindful Midwifery, right there in Camden, where she does classes and things like that for women of all ages, to give them different help from the educational standpoint. So that was something that we kind of tag teamed, and is one of the things that I'm personally in my life the most proud of in my work, was being able to set that up, develop it, and make it happen. And that's what I tell a lot of people is why private practice? Well, we were able to set that up because we wanted to do it. If I was at a hospital setting, that would never happen. Okay. Because there's just so many layers of red tape. And the other thing I'm very proud about is internally we operate that as a nonprofit. So all the money gets returned to the clinicians who are treating the patients. We don't make anything off of mental health, and that's another great thing. Is that we were able to do that, and that the docs say, "Hey, we don't need anything on that end."
Okay, that's beautiful.
And the other thing I was thinking, when Lauren was talking about it's massively important to treat people where they are and be able to treat them throughout life. And that transition is equal to how we try to treat our employees as well. And our physicians and things like that. Whenever we interview new physicians, that's one of the biggest things that we say, or that I say, is I want to be able to, treat you fairly and treat you well now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, when kids are in school, or when you want the work-life balance, or when college comes up and you got to pay yearly tuition and you need to make more, that type of thing. And that's one of the biggest things, is being able to make that transition of, we want to be able to care for you where you're at in life, as an employee, or provider as well, and have that transition to the patient care.
That's awesome. It's creating that culture from the inside, so they feel that. I do have a personal testimonial. I'm not going to go into detail what it was, but my wife, Megan's mom, about 6-7 years ago, had a major operation, and Dr. Wong was and I remember the initial thing, I was like, I don't know if I want a guy, the initial for me and for any. I met him, and I just want to let you know, to this day, we still talk about his incredible bedside manner and how well he treated, and obviously execution of the surgeries, but it's nice when you have tact and you're actually a compassionate person. That's, And
I think some of that comes with the private practice mentality from the physician's mind too, right? They're owners of this practice. They're here because they're choosing to be. It is a choice that they're making. They're wanting to serve and give their time, and it does make a difference, right? They're not a number on a payroll sheet. They are fully invested in the outcome of end to end for the care of the patient. And
it's felt, because we weren't connected that way from business. This was a while ago, and to this day, as a husband and I experienced it. I'm like, okay, I feel this is safe. I'm okay with this scenario, because it was very easy. Yeah. It was no friction.
Yeah, it's good when compassion and skill goes hand in hand. We just talked about that this morning at our Master Network group, about how the mindset. What was the term? It was that they used, attitude.
Yeah,
your attitude and your skill set go together, and how much it can make a difference. And I wanted to address, when you were saying about the mental health, how it was, I wouldn't say it was an easy process, but it was easier because it was private practice, because you didn't have all the red tape and everything. So mental health doesn't stop. It's always needed. So it's good that was able to happen quicker than
Right.
it would at a hospital. Could you talk about why you decided to start that process and like how that went? Is there something that happened that made you very like dedicated to that?
Yeah. So,
Pun intended.
Yeah, I heard it.
yeah. So the issue that we kept running into was you would refer people to the community, to clinicians in the community, and especially, at the same time, I had my first baby right when I was starting. My wife was actually pregnant. We were patients of the practice when I interviewed, and we ended up making the move to working here. And anyone who has kids knows once they come, your time is limited to that focus. Is really everything you can do to just focus on the kid, and that really. Postpartum depression, those types of things, and you can talk about it all you want, but until you actually go through it, you can't prepare for it. And when you're struggling mentally, or you're struggling, it may not even be depression. It may just be, this is way more change than I can handle, or I feel like I can handle right now. And then you can quickly go from, this isn't like something that's going to pass. The kid's not going away.
Like how do I deal with this while also raising a child?
And it's, oh my God, the kid's going to be here for 18 years. How am I going to, and if you get down on yourself, and it can spiral easy, and both me and my wife went through some of that. I think every new parent does. But what would happen is if you go in to talk to your doc, they give you a referral. Well, I'm here focused on me with my doc for that 10 minutes that I have one-on-one time. And I can say I'm really struggling all this and that. Okay, we'll get you a referral, and then you go on your way. But as soon as you walk out the door, life smacks you in the face again. And then it's, I got to feed the kid. Oh my God, he's got a nap. Oh my God, all this stuff, and then you never get to it. Or you make one call to try to schedule an appointment, and someone calls you back, and then so we'd never had the follow through, right? You could admit you had issues. You could be okay with seeing a mental health person, and then at the end of the day, you never go. So the point of it was to find a warm transition almost into the community, identifying it in the third trimester, one of the biggest things that we talk about in OBGYN or OB care now is the fourth trimester, which is after birth, and that how important that is. And one of the other things I'm really proud of is ACOG, who is the American College of Gynecologic, whatever, our governing body, came out and said, because of this fourth trimester, we wanted, you really should be doing 2 postpartum visits, one at the 3-week and one at the 6-week. Okay. Well, insurance, or pay only accounts for one, right? So you only get paid for one. But they came out with that, and we do too. And we no charge the second one because we feel that that's how important it is. And that's, going into this whole fourth trimester and how important it is. One of the things that we like to do is identify issues in the third trimester, and do you need, do you want, do you need, do you, care, and from the mental health perspective, and then having you already established by the time kid comes and all this stuff, and then it becomes a warm handoff. You're not here forever, but we can get you used to mental health, get you, especially if you don't have somebody or you've never been exposed to it, and then by the time we've got you stable, kid come, you're used to, your weekly stuff, and then we transition you out into the community instead of just giving you a form and saying good luck in the community. So that was kind of the need, was simply getting patients to go from A to point B, and putting an intermediary in there to help them warm transition in.
It almost gives like an accountability because it's all there.
So I was going to say too, Javier, you mentioned feeling safe with the decisions. So our patients trust us because that's what happens, right? And so they feel that it's something, they're trusting us through that process, but also they come back and have another appointment with our physician, and it's so much easier for us to have that visibility. Like, were you able to make that appointment? I can see here that you haven't been able to meet with the counselor yet.
Life happens. Life happens. We mean to do things, but we just get caught up in everything.
Right.
And that's a big one to not miss. I'm here picking at coffee beans. So.
It also must be so nice that with that now they have more records in one place. So if I'm struggling and having to repeat that to a new person is a lot. So having a safe place where it's like, oh, we see here, we have that info. You don't have to keep bringing it, over and over and explain yourself.
Exactly. And then the other goal is to, when you are kind of stable or whatever, and we're ready to move on, if continued long-term help is something that you need, we ideally like to have them set up 1 to 2 visits where it's a third-party consult, where it's the patient, our dedicated clinician, and the third-party clinician that you're transitioning to, so that you can have those conversations about here's where we're at, here's what we've done, here's, make it as warm of a handoff as you can, so you're not going in cold to a new place.
Yeah. Have you guys?
Frictionless.
Yes, I love that, and then the warm transition. 2 new favorite. I love those. It's funny you said that, because I was gonna ask if there was ever a patient's feedback that led to you using a new way of doing things. Do you guys get feedback from patients that have given you new ideas moving forward to adjust things as you grow and grow so fast? Does that make?
Well, I think we try to always listen to our patients, and I think something again unique about our physicians being owners is we meet twice a month as a board, as a group of owner physicians. Jeff and I help facilitate that meeting, but it's really the docs talking about the business, and it's an opportunity for them to bring things up, big wins, opportunities, things that maybe they're hearing. Another thing I know we both try to do is we try to be really aware. We try to listen. We try to be in the community. We try to pay attention to the Facebook post or the comments or the chatter that maybe you're hearing, because a lot of the times, honestly, most feedback and changes come from maybe someone having a negative experience. So I think trying really hard to be open and how can we change or pivot from that so that we can improve that.
Exactly.
We serve thousands of patients just in a singular day. Sometimes we see up to 200 plus in a single location, and so it's really important to both of us to really have a pulse on what those outcomes are and what people are saying after they leave the practice.
And I've seen that firsthand when I talk to you guys about when we're working together and communicating.
And a lot of my friends, my daughter's friends' parents, these moms are in the practice. They're the patients. Yeah. And I was talking the other day, my daughter plays high school field hockey, and we were sitting on the bleachers, and it was just a lot of feedback. But I try really hard to listen, because that's it, right? They're the consumer, really. When you think about with all of our strategies or what we're doing, and I was also able to give them some clarity. So we use my chart as our main point of communication inside of Dedicated to Women for a lot of reasons, but mostly for convenience of you, the patient. But sometimes when change happens, people are like, well, what do you mean? Why do I have to do this differently now? But this was a group of school teachers, and I'm like, listen, you're busy for 8 hours a day, but I can send you a quick My Chart message. We can back and forth. It's more convenient for you. I'm able to get you the answer. And we're able to, again, create that frictionless end-to-end, because everyone can see those messages. It builds within the chart. It's not trying to decode a phone call that one individual had.
Or an email string in somebody's inbox that it's the message was 4 messages down.
Yeah. With an establishment that's been around for so long, I can understand that the minor, the most small change could freak someone who's been in there for a while, but it's for the greater good, and it's good we have people to explain that to them, and we're doing this change for your benefit.
No, we absolutely, and that transition it can have a little friction, so it's just a matter of clarifying things with people.
And we have a big age gap of patients when you think about. We have young to grandmothers, they're all, and so you have to really be careful in making sure that we're just.
And at High Ground, my business, my company, we touch that part. We have conversations about there's a lot of different people So they receive messages and communications differently. So we have to communicate it appropriately to the right age group. Yeah. Some people are on Instagram, some people are on Facebook, some people are email. It's just that's the conversations we're having. It's interesting you say it, because I want to use this as a segue about challenges, because I know you guys have been doing a lot of growing and expansion physically, with offices and practices and acquisitions and all kinds of things. So the question is, how do you, what are those challenges? Is there any, if you want to speak to that, and how do you use your creativity, imagination within that to kind of, at the same time you're growing, to keep that experience frictionless as much as possible? I know what's happening because I know a little more from being a little bit on the inside, but gosh, since you guys have been clients for a few years, you've had new branches, new doctors, other practices that came in and were kind of absorbed by Dedicated to Women. That has to create a lot of challenges, and so
yeah, it can.
That's not a question, but I'm just kind of opening that up. Anything that comes out of you want to share.
I think something that's challenging about both of our positions, probably the thing that makes me get the most anxious sometimes, is Jeff and I live 3 years ahead, right? So we're always thinking what's 1 to 3 years from where we are right now. But then I know, especially in my role with operations, I'm also living on the floor in the moment. So we're on the fly solving problems of today, while trying to think about what's the plan, where are we headed in 1 to 3 years. So we try to use that mentality too. We actually had a big, heavy conversation before we came here just about some structure, because you have to be adapting, but we're always moving towards that next target. So we did recently we have had a ton of growth. Yes, we're from Middletown to the beaches now. So Dedicated to Women is growing from that aspect, but also we have, Dr. Wendy Knowles with us. She's a general surgeon. Surgical Associates is part of Dedicated to Women now, and they've been a practice around for a long time. And, even just adding maternal fetal medicine sort of changed the mentality a little bit of us being this small OBGYN practice, but it's important to us that we maintain that. Right. That is one thing we hear from our internal. You mentioned it earlier a little bit. Internally is where we start. We try to serve our employees and our physicians in the same way that we would want to serve our patients. Right. And I think that's what helps. And that's where we have to be creative and where we have to always be sort of thinking forward. And again, you think a lot of our employees are also our patient demographic, so it kind of helps us stay in tune with things a little bit better. But as we talk about growth, it's challenging change. I talk about the valley of change a lot, right? So everybody wants change. Everybody wants growth. Everybody's tired of doing things the old way, and they want something new and shiny. Then the new shiny thing comes and they all fall off the cliff, and then everybody gets stuck down here. And then Jeff and I have to you have to push and pull a little to get people there. But I think climbing out of that valley is where we spend a lot of time.
Yeah. And I empathize, because it's external with patients, but it's also internal with your team and the staff to get them, to buy into it and participate. So there's always this back and forth. And I'll use one analogy for sports. You're playing long game and short game at the same time. And that's always, you can't play the long game at the expense of the short game, but you can't play the now at the expense of the future. And I see that turmoil, is that that challenge with you, both of you, all the time. So I commend you, because look, you're smiling.
She's like, I'm going to laugh through it.
It's hard. And we have a lot, we are a larger group too. So you have it's a lot to balance. And having coverage in all the offices. And I will say, I think, and I'm sure you echo this, we have a fantastic management team. So I know Jeff and I are the ones sitting here at the table right now. I think we have 7 or 8 managers. I'm always terrible about exactly how many of them there are. Numbers are not my strength. So
that's what he does.
Yeah.
So, we have 7 or 8 managers that, when you talk about running the ship, right? They're in it. They're on the floor. They are all working leads. So they are in the position as well as managing and pulling the teams with them, or encouraging that. But I don't think I probably think about it as a creative thing that we do, but it's so much creativity, right? Every day we're brainstorming. How do we help with this? How do we change that? How do we do better at this? But I do want to give credit to that team because I think they do a fantastic job, and they're what give Jeff and I the space to be 3 years ahead because they keep the operations running.
There's that in the movie Apollo 13. Let's work the problem. Let's work right. In other words, you focus on making, and that's creativity. It's like, look at it, what's going on here. Instead of sitting here blaming and pointing fingers, let's focus here and adjust.
I giggle a little bit. So we had sometimes the weeks are full of strategy. Sometimes they're not, right? Just this week. And I will admittedly say I love empowering people to see what's possible, right? You can't fix everything. And I get stuck there sometimes because I'm like, no, I can fix it. We can get there. I can get her there, whatever those things are. So this week we were really deep in some stuff, and Jeff's like, have you ever seen the movie Apollo 13?
Come on, man. Come on, give me a fist bump right there. I love that movie.
So it is funny that it comes full circle.
I love that. That movie inspires me because those people on the ground collaborating is what made it happen. It wasn't one person. And I love the role of Ed Harris. He was a real good, because he was like, okay, everybody's arguing about credit and about this and about that. And it's like, let's work the problem. And when you get that collaboration in any environment, that's creativity at its finest. That's a creative trust, and trust is the center of that. When you have that respect and the trust within the team, magical things happen. And that's the tapping into that inner creative with people.
And obviously you're prioritizing your patients, but if your team isn't, communicating, and how can you keep growing and keep that same process for your patient?
That's so wise. You must have a really cool dad.
Sorry about him.
Love that. No, that's really, really, really nice. That's right. You have to have cohesiveness in the team. I'm a sports guy like you, so in sports, if the players can be as talented and great as they are, but if in the clubhouse they're a mess, it's going to show up on the field. They're not going to. Look at the World Series this year. You got teams that are really good, but hardly anybody knows who these people are. But these guys were really, really good together, and I see that.
Now, when you're pulling them out of the valley, are there certain things that you do the same that help that, or do you have an example of one way you pull them out of the valley, or do you have a go-to instinct of okay, I'm a list maker, or is there something that you do that helps you?
Yeah, I don't know. There's probably things I do that we don't even realize that we do. One thing I will say that we brought back that COVID had taken away from us for a little bit was staff meetings in person.
Yeah,
seeing people. And when you have almost 100 staff members from, again, Middletown to the beaches, there were people who didn't even know each other, and we're like, well, how in the world are they going to work well together when they don't even know, right, each other? So that was something, and Jeff was pretty vocal about this is really important. So we actually close our offices early one day a month, a little early, to try to meet together as a team. I try to be really enthusiastically honest during those meetings. I try to always have good energy, right? Something I talk about a lot is always complaining up. So I would never let anyone else see or feel some of the frustrations that can happen, because it's life and that can happen. But I also try to really be honest, because I think that's where the staff trusts us and starts climbing, right? Yeah. When we're like, this is what's on the other side. This is what's coming. There's parts of this that are going to suck. And when we both try not to pretend those things aren't happening.
Exactly.
That's what people.
If you're sugarcoating it, it's not going to help anything. That's very important. Honesty. I feel like that's a value that people kind of look over when it comes to
don't sugarcoat things, and
because you're in it together, so why would you hide what's going on?
And it seems like common sense, but not many people practice it. So I respect that and love that you guys do that.
We try also to be really aware of perception. I think we talk about that a lot, that sometimes a message gets delivered with something I joke a lot in the office is, well, I had good intention. It came from a place of good intention, but you have to really think about where were they in the moment when they read that email? Were they having a really crazy day? Had they had the worst day, ever? Did they have something personal going on in their lives? Because all of those things impact their perception and what they're thinking about it. And so we try to always think and consider that. It's not, not always a win. Sometimes
for both patient and
both. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
100%.
Do you want to go find some fun questions?
Yeah, I wanted to see which one you want to pick.
Oh, I'll let you.
Well, I was going to ask, I already asked about one of them. So we had some fun questions. What science fiction technology do you wish was real and available right now for your practice? So it could be like something that doesn't exist, or
Star
maybe
Trek, Star Wars, anything.
because not to be a movie nerd real quick, but the guy who created Avatar, he thought of it way before it came out because technology hadn't approached what he wanted to do with the movie. So in your field, is there anything that you're like, man, I wish that existed, or that we could implement that?
I don't know. I mean, not the same, but I do keep reading up and interested to see how the whole AI push affects healthcare, and what they're trying to do and what they think they can do, and how that's going to transition into real life. And the problem is with healthcare, there's so many administrative. It's just a lot of administrative stuff, and not administrative stuff in a good sense. I mean, administrative in a time-consuming manual process that is not really enjoyable for most people. And I'm interested to see if AI will help automate some of those things, or be able to kind of if this then that, and do a little bit of independent work
right.
on specifically like my end with the billing and that type of stuff and that type of work.
And it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So it's going to be impacting industries, as now the
Everywhere.
markets are dictating that. So for sure.
Maybe a robot.
It's a little bit of a hard question, and I go back to like the quote you opened with, though. Like, the human heart is such a part of healthcare. Like,
Exactly.
I don't know that the answer is going to be putting in some crazy piece of technology, because I think at the end of the day, what the person wants is to be treated like a person.
Exactly.
Matters of the heart are always. I said this in our group today. I was like, I'm a very passionate guy to a fault sometimes, and life is not a formula. We like to create spreadsheets and bullet points. I try, if this, then that, but sometimes it always comes down to just feelings and emotions and us at the end of the day. Well, look, in Star Trek, there's a really cool tool that they go like this, and they kind of, okay, you have this, let me hit the button. Okay,
Yeah,
now
that
you're
might make
fixed.
life a little easier.
Yeah, it could be a fun answer. It doesn't have to.
I don't know
ever
what it's called.
happen.
I should know what it's called. I forget. Was there any patient's feedback you ever gotten? And if there isn't, it's okay. I'm not trying to do a gotcha question. That kind of drove something to change in policy, or even in the way you do things. Something somebody said, an idea that just came literally from a patient.
Gosh, I can't.
And if there isn't, it's okay. I just was curious.
Yeah, because we were talking about like that they just, if it's a negative review, it's usually like they pay attention to it.
So I think one of the biggest things for us, both Lauren and myself, is identifying and managing trends and patterns. It's one of the things that I talk about a lot is and trends and patterns, right? A one-off issue when you're seeing thousands of patients a week, we take everything seriously, but when you start sending out surveys and things like that, you get back, you look for a trend or a pattern. So I wouldn't say it would be one individual situation that would make wholesale change, and I don't think we would be good managers to operate like that, where you get one statement, and I wouldn't judge my employees on one.
That's a good point.
Bad review. Or
But if you hear it over and over and
Looking
over
for
again,
a pattern.
but if you're collecting and doing the right analysis, and you see a trend and a pattern, then you identify that, and you fix it from there.
that's a great point.
So that's how I would address it.
That's very, I think I can use that even in what I do too, because this is a really random one, but I had years ago, someone was upset that the poly mailers I use were cute because they said it'll get stolen. And my instinct was to fix, so I was like, I'm so sorry, like that they're cute. I didn't need to change how I do my packaging just because of that one person. Like maybe just the area she was in, it just happened to get stolen or something. And obviously I fixed the problem, like you get a refund, whatever. But then now, we're 6 years in, and I look back, and that's a huge staple of us, is how aesthetic our packaging is. So I'm glad I didn't listen to that one person who wanted just a white mailer from Amazon.
You've grown so much, because I had to pick you out of, you were in a fetal position. Oh, Megan, it's okay. You can have
I'm like, I'm so sorry.
She probably just wanted to hide that the package was actually something exciting.
Yeah,
Let's be
literally.
honest.
Yeah, she was like, I was hiding it.
But have you ever bought something and like, wow, this is really good, and you open it, it's like,
I just feel like that experience was important, so I'm glad that when you say that the pattern, there's no pattern. It was only that person years ago. So,
Right.
And sometimes you have to stay true to who you are
Exactly.
too. And I mean, that happens in our business too. So it's totally different, but sometimes we have to stay true to like what our mission is. And we're always listening. We're always there. And we, you know, sometimes you just need to vent or get the thing out, but that doesn't always mean that.
You get to
A
change
huge
policy
change
or
is
change
needed.
things. No, that's a
Absolutely.
good point. Oh, let's do myth busting. Want to do that?
yeah.
Why do you make me feel nervous?
Okay, so in general, it could be OB/GYN, any of the lines of business. This is the moment right here. You can be heard. We don't have to do an FAQ or some big video. We can right here set the register. Is there any myths in women's healthcare in your industry that people just can't get freaking right, and you just friggin' right, and you want to just go ahead and rest, get it done. Explain it. Nothing?
Or a simple one is just like an outsider might just think it's just a OBGYN, but it's so many things. Like, I feel like that's something you keep wanting to preach. Like, we do a lot more
why are
than
you
you
helping
think.
them? We're supposed to
Because
catch them.
silence is not good for a podcast.
Okay, so good point.
I don't know. You might tell me to stop talking on this one. We might have to ask for a pause. But I think a myth for us is you can get an appointment. We have appointments. I'll be really honest with you. We're the only game, right? You hear that. That's a myth I'd like to bust, right? Sorry for clapping so loud. So we have location. The reasons we're growing, the reasons we're spreading our wings is to be able to continuously have appointment availability. We have, and again, we listen to those things. Our ultrasound department runs from 6:45 in the morning till 7:30 at night. That's on purpose so that we have options, we have availability. And I think sometimes we maybe get the rap of it's too hard to get in, it's too hard to get an appointment. Something Jeff and I do all the time is we call around, we see what other options are there in the state, what other opportunities do patients have or to get an appointment, and we make it a point to make sure that we have availability.
Yeah, I think that's safe to say.
Yeah.
I think you're in a safe place to say that.
I think
We have room for you.
Yes.
I think simply put, one of the things that I say often to people when they ask me that is what is a myth is what is not a myth is that we could hire 20 OBGYN physicians today, and tomorrow we'd need a 21st in the state. That's the situation that we're in.
Yeah.
And that really is. And we are doing what I can tell you is the practice is devoted to the area and devoted to primarily Kent County, Delaware, and that is very, very difficult. And we want to treat each patient with care and consideration, but always remember that we are trying to care for an entire community with as many resources as we can, and our physicians have families and have lives of their own.
Yes.
And we want to keep them equally as mentally prepared and healthy and physically and mentally as any one of us would want for our family and friends. So we do everything we can, and sometimes that's difficult, and sometimes it's riding a tough
Yeah,
road to
because
hoe.
that growth is great, but you want to take your time to do it properly so that nothing is left out and you still get that same care.
And the growth, just to circle back on that, while we're kind of discussing some of this stuff, just the honesty of growth, right? Well, why are you growing? I don't know how to put this in the best terms because all four of us love it, but outside of this maybe room and people who are listening to this podcast, Dover, Delaware is not, it's not the most ideal place where people from all over the country are saying, Dover, Delaware is where I want to come. I want to live. I've heard of it. I love it. I want it. That's what I want in life is Dover, Delaware. And Jeff, I love that you live in the middle of nowhere, and I could do that, and that's where I want to raise.
He is correct.
So we get a little bit of the opposite. So a lot of our growth, the growth mindset is, if we have a physician that's willing to devote significant time to Dover, Delaware, maybe he or she says, you know what, Rehoboth, Bethany, Dewey, I like that area. That's, I've heard of Rehoboth Beach, and, that's a wonderful place. I will set up a practice 5 feet from your house if I can to get you to come here, as long as you're willing to devote significant time to Dover, Delaware, and Kent County and that type of an area. And the same goes for North. I mean, North Wilmington and some of those areas up there, traditionally outside of, traditionally a lot of people like that type of lifestyle, which is very different from down here in Kent County. And,
right.
It's as much a recruiting tool to get the clinicians and the people we need for our area as it is just expanding to expand.
Right.
Because we want them to be able to move to Delaware or move to the area and be able to live where they want to live, and also be able to get them to come up and equally treat in our area without necessarily having to commit to
city. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Jeff and Lauren, you guys are kind of what we hoped, and I'm glad we have you here, what our podcast is about. I mean, you encompass creativity and imagination, and creativity is not apparent all the time. It doesn't have to be being artistic or painting or drawing something. It's just solving problems, looking at situations, and seeing the resources you have, the people you have, and making adjustments, not being rigid. And you live that every single day, and it's instinctive for you guys. But that I'm glad we were able to draw that out of you, because it's very clear. And all of you in our audience, whether you're in Delaware or not, you can take nuggets of this and apply it to, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're starting a business, if you're an organization. My company, we have 8 of us. We don't have 100, but there's a lot of principles you guys are practicing that you can apply in everyday life, in your business and different places like that. So thank you for being very honest and candid about this, because it impacts, and it also inspires me. And I know it's going to inspire a lot of people to do that. Did we miss anything? I think we kind of, do you want to, yeah, please.
Do you want to do the role reverse?
Yeah, let's do that. She just, so you want to go ahead?
I wanted you to explain it properly.
All right, so.
Because I can't
we want you, this will be the last one, we'll kind of wrap it up here. We're going to ask you to swap roles. What new policy would you implement?
Or change.
Please be open and be 100% raw here.
We're swapping with each other.
Yeah, so now, I know, right? So now you're the director of operations, you're, the executive director. You had one day, we swapped roles. Don't say what you want the other person to hear, please. We're amongst friends. And if there isn't anything, it doesn't have to be. And it's not a big gotcha thing. Megan and I were thinking about creative ways to kind of bring some information when you guys have shared so much. So this is not like a big thing to kind of bring conflict. I just thought it might be something funny here.
Gosh, it sounds so silly to say, but like we are like the right brain, left brain of each other. So we share space with each other.
Yes, you do. You're like in a small space, smaller than this, a little office.
And we have opportunity to move out, but yet we're still both like, this is okay, right? Like this is working okay right now. It just keeps us really cohesive. We kind of always know what's happening. Another thing too is we work together on so many things, I think, like, and it's both really important to both of us that we're not saying, wait, Jeff made that decision. I don't even know.
It's a good point.
What that is. And it took us some time to even maybe get there in the beginning, with like, hey, don't make that choice without talking to me about that first. And we both equally respect each other a lot in that way. I don't know if there's like anything other than maybe like, Lauren gets to live at the beach. I'm not surprised at your answer, because I looked at Jeff's face, but I'm going to give you
thinking.
No, this is a really interesting thing. When we started the podcast, Megan and I, it was Gen Z, Gen X, father, daughter, business owners. It was supposed to have this. The initial thing was like, wow, this is going to be a lot of kind of very spirited discussions. But we found people were telling us, you guys agree on everything. And they're expecting this conflict and this back and forth.
We just kind of balance each other.
Yeah, and I see that in both of you. Even though you're not related, you spend a lot of time. So there has to be a level of love and respect there professionally that you guys, So I'm not surprised at the answer. We were just seeing if there was something fun, but you're right. You guys, this is why this works in many ways. And I know that, this this movement that you guys have in this company and this practice is bigger than any individual. But you have to have people internally that care about each other and respect each other and kind of anticipate each other's moves and balance each other.
I think what's so crazy though is I would say we are wildly different than each other, a lot in a lot of ways, but I never feel on an opposite end. Sometimes I'm frustrated because that happens and it's in business, and sometimes I'm more in the weeds of like an employee matter or a structure or the org chart, and I want to dig in and really go step by step through projects. And sometimes Jeff's like, hey, take a walk. Don't spend so much time there. And so that helps a lot, but it's rare to feel fully conflicted. And when we do, it's resolved quickly. I think
there's a lesson right there.
Yeah.
Take care of it quickly.
Yeah.
Right?
And then I have like a 24-hour emotional rule that I apply to myself. Something I try to teach my kids. I actually learned it from one of my kids' coaches. If you're overly emotional, excited, happy, sad, mad, give yourself 24 hours, right? Like, don't just accept the job offer because you're overly excited that you got it, or you're really frustrated about something. So I think a lot of the times I give myself the 24-hour before I say. It's rare that I have to close the door and say, like, I need to vent about this.
It's like, did he just say that? No,
my wife will be like, that's not true. She doesn't wait 24 hours to
But that's your intent.
False.
When we talk about intent, I meant to wait 24 hours.
Yeah.
Do you want to change anything though? What would you, if you were me? Don't let me just answer.
Yeah.
I couldn't. I mean, I guess the only thing I was thinking, and it's kind of a cop-out answer, is I always sometimes think to myself, like this week, I wish somehow you could implant, something and say, I wish she knew what it was like before she came. You know what I mean? Like, I wish she understood what it was like, to see. Sometimes it's so hard to see how far you've come and how poor I was at a lot of the things that she excels in. I mean, I think we know that because we complement each other in that sense. But sometimes it's like the things that, the things that she may be upset about or whatever, venting about, were dreams of mine 5 years ago, 6 years ago. I wish I could get to this point.
Lauren, I think he's giving you a compliment.
Well, it's so true because then that causes her stress, and I can't, and that's not good for the practice. That's not good for me. That's not good for her. Obviously, is trying to help. I think that's the biggest benefit that I get, or one of the biggest, is that we try to build each other up. You know what I mean, and we try to keep each other on a positive, role.
That's awesome.
So I mean, I hired Lauren because I wanted Lauren. I don't want to change anything about her. I need her to be Lauren. Right. You know what I mean? It's weirdly similar to, like I've needed that person for a long time, and it's, after working with Lauren at the hospital multiple times, and it was kind of one of those things, like, I found my person. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I
awesome.
found my person, and it was wonderful to have a board of physicians that said, get her. Right. And it wasn't a decision that I made lightly, and I'd been looking for that for a long time, or since I, really, so it is that type of relationship almost, it's almost like a marriage, where it's, I mean, I wouldn't change anything. My wife is my wife because I love everything about her, she's her person, the faults, the great stuff, the negative, it's all encompassing, and I wouldn't change, that's my person. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
I love that.
You just adapt
That's an
and
awesome
figure
answer.
it out together.
Yeah, and relationship isn't something talked about in business a lot. And you even mentioned, like, there's a level of, like, love and respect for each other that you have to have. And I think sometimes people feel like that's so cringy to say. But when you think about the amount of time, I mean, Jeff and I are spending 8-10 hours physically, but our minds are always thinking about the practice and thinking about growth. Both of us were terrible, like 9 o'clock at night, like, hey.
Yeah.
But we really take that even one level further with our staff, right? These are relationships that we're in with these people.
Right.
They are humans on the other end. So we have the person and we have the position, and we both really respect that about our staff.
And you can understand people more when they have a bad day like that too, because you know them well.
Right.
And you can kind of give them that grace.
Oh, absolutely.
So I like the cop-out answer. So
That was good. Oh my God.
Keep a little ego boost. Is there anything you guys want to plug for socials or organization or anything?
Like how can we find
for
you
our
online?
listeners?
Yeah, how can we
How they
find
can book an appointment if they need, or
yeah, so you're still going to schedule an appointment by giving us a call. I think we have an excellent team behind the phones there waiting to help you out, but just giving us a call directly. But we'd love for you to follow us on social media. The team here is also helping us really get better with that. And I think, too, we talked about this a lot. We want your feedback, right? If you are a patient of ours, if you're someone in the community, if you have feedback, we want you to know that there's people right behind the exam rooms that want to know. We want to know how we can make it better. And we also plan to continue to serve for a really long time. I talk a lot about we have a next generation of physicians. A lot of people know Dr. Scaccieri, Dr. Wong, right? These Dr. Hartman, they're physicians that have been with our practice. I have some stats on paper that we could just talk about how long, they've been, Dr. Scaccieri's been our president since 2004.
Be on the lookout for our social media facts.
Yeah, we're
Coming soon. We got a whole list.
We're going to use that.
do a little carousel.
Yeah.
But we have a whole nother, generation of physicians and providers that want to continue to care for Delaware, and we're excited to kind of keep that growth happening and serve the women and people.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
And I'll plug you guys. I mean, it's been one of the best relationships that we've started is utilizing High Ground. I mean, our social media is fantastic. Everything that you guys have touched or done has been outstanding, first rate. I am so excited.
Yeah, our whole rebranding project.
Thank you. Thank you.
Fantastic.
I plug Tracy Miller for whatever she's running for right now.
Yeah, so Tracy Miller, we want to give her a shout out. We haven't said anything about her, but she for a while was part of this team. And we love you, Tracy.
We do. We miss you, Tracy.
She made this relationship happen, and I will be forever grateful because it is fantastic, and I love how you have your family working, and it's been a great relationship and a wonderful
Thank you, Jeff.
relationship.
Thank you. And you can see there's a world where Philly fans and Nationals fans can get along.
That's correct.
She's shaking her head at me. You always do that. No. All right, so I think we're in a good place.
Yes, thank you guys so much
Thank
for
you.
all of
Thanks.
your
I appreciate you
information.
being on. It was very special for us to be here.
And there's things I learned that you guys offer that I didn't know you did. So that's great.
Right.
I didn't know. And especially the mental health thing is so awesome.
Huge.
Yeah. All right. So that was a great episode.
Yes, awesome.
We are wrapping up with another gem of an episode on the creative side of things. And if you want to see us visually,
smiling faces. I am a watcher of a podcast, so you can catch us on YouTube.
You can watch his glasses fog up.
You can see that. You can see what Lauren and Jeff look like. But if you're a listener and you don't watch podcasts, that's fine. We still want you part of the team.
Yeah, so if you're like me and you're always on the go, we have your back. You can tune in on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, and even Google Podcasts.
Yes, you got them.
We're
we got
practically
the big four.
everywhere.
That's right. And so we are everywhere. We want to be more places, but it starts with you. Thank you for Right Brainers for being part of this. We're building a movement. We want to consider creativity as part of a category in your life, in imagination. That is a part of our brain that is not tapped into often, but you can kind of take a deep breath and you can solve problems if you really kind of take a deep breath and focus on solutions rather than complain.
Yeah, and remember that the world does need your creativity.
It does,
with that, go create something.
Go create something.